everybody, it's Kristen. Welcome to this week's talk. So we are in the middle of a toxic relationship series, and last week was toxic friendships, and this week is actually going to be toxic family relationships. And it's so funny because I actually just got back not too long ago from a family vacation in the mountains with all of my immediate family, and it was great. It was a great time, but it was just kind of a reminder of how important healthy family relationships can be to your life and how fulfilling it can be to have those relationships thriving. And so although I know that every family has their version of some sort of dysfunction or issues or things like that, I do want to talk about a couple of points that are toxic situations, behaviors that occur within a family system that sometimes we don't always see it as that. A lot of times we will accept whatever type of behavior or treatment because someone is related to us by blood, and just how much that affects how we set boundaries and how we have conversations with people who we're actually related to. It's just really interesting for me to go into. And so I'm going to give you 4 signs of a toxic family relationship. And there's more than 4. I'm just going to talk about 4 for the sake of time and for the sake of this particular video. But there's definitely more to it. But I hope you'll gather something from this. So number 1 for a toxic family relationship, the number 1 sign I would say, just for me, being a therapist, and I'm actually a marriage and family therapist by profession. And so for me, the number 1 thing I've seen is poor boundaries. Whatever that may mean for you, everybody has different standards, different expectations, different things that they would deem acceptable or unacceptable, and those would be your boundaries. What will I tolerate? What won't I tolerate? How much will I give? How much do I need to keep for myself emotionally, time-wise, or whatever? And so families with poor boundaries tend to have a level of toxicity that can really poison the entire family. And so what does that look like? For someone who maybe has addiction in their family, that may look like enabling someone continuing to give money to someone who's using it on drugs and alcohol. That could be a parent who has a child that's grown up in the home and they never quite grew up, and so they've been enabling them to stay dependent, to not have their own job, their own resources to live an adult life. And so that's one of the primary examples that I come across in my line of work. But that could also mean a lack of boundaries in a way that this is my decision to make. And yes, you can give suggestions if I ask for them, or you can give me support and feedback. But this area of my life, or my life in general, is mine to make decisions on and deal with. And so anytime you have families that are overstepping their boundaries, getting into your business, your finances, your relationships, especially when it's not asked for, those would be signs of poor boundaries. Number 2 is negativity towards change and growth. And so families, just by nature, things get passed down from generation to generation. Your grandparents lived life a certain way and they raised your parents, and then your parents took some of what was passed down to them and then they raised you with it, and then now you are perhaps an adult starting your own family, and then you also have the right and the space to make your family what you want to make it. And so anybody that has a negative attitude towards you growing or changing or doing things differently than perhaps generations before you did it, that can be very toxic. So for example, that could be if you are a rising senior in high school and you want to go to college, and your family feels that you shouldn't go to college. They talk about how bad it is for you, and we think you should just go and get a job. And maybe they have some valid points to their argument, but if they start to sabotage or limit you or pull you back from things that you are really passionate about, then that's a sign of toxicity. That can mean that could come across as statements like, you'll never be able to achieve that. There's no use in you trying. You might as well. Once you're your last name, always, your last name, that kind of mentality where your identity is wrapped into what your family has been historically. And so if you're finding that that's a situation that you're going through, is it normal? It's not. it probably is pretty common in some families, but it's not normal. It's not something that you should just shrug off, because that energy that they're pouring into you is going somewhere. I always say that whatever energy is being given and received is going somewhere. And so those negative comments can really start to impact your ability to grow yourself. Number 3 is minimizing or denying that things happened, whether that be in your childhood, whether that be yesterday at the family get together. Family members who deny or refuse to accept that certain things happened are very toxic to your well-being. Prime example of this is any sort of abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, incest, traumas, other traumas that happen, and families who deny that those things happen. Perhaps that family member was right there when it happened, but in their reality now, they deny that it even happened, that they weren't there, they never saw anything. Or when you're speaking your truth about something that did happen to you, having family members that don't believe you, that would say, oh no, so-and-so couldn't have done that, or oh no, you're just making stuff up, when you're speaking your truth. Family should have, in your family, in a true healthy family, you should be able to speak your truth and at least be met with compassion and empathy. And so if you're not getting that when you are sharing about things that you're going through, how something in your childhood has affected you, then that's a definite sign of toxicity, which kind of spills over into my last point, which is the difference between secrets and privacy. And so that ties into the third one, because a lot of times issues within a family get passed down from generation to generation because secrets have been kept along the way. So that very same problem that perhaps you are dealing with in your life may have strung all the way back generations and generations before you, but you had no frame of reference. You had no idea, where you actually came from in that sense, because secrets were kept, and you weren't really, and you didn't know what was wrong with so-and-so, and you didn't know why so-and-so didn't come around, or those sorts of things. And what makes that toxic? Now, there's nothing wrong with privacy. Do we want to go and just air out our family's business out on Front Street? No. But secrets are that type of energy where things are swept under the rug and they're never talked about. Secrets are not talked about. Secrets are kept in shame and in guilt and just wanting to deny that things happened. But privacy still allows space for processing and discussion and communication. And no, we're not, again, having this wide open conversation at the family reunion, but there are spaces in time where things that have happened or situations that are going on can be discussed in a healthy environment. And so if you find that your family is more a secretive and keeping secrets, that's how addiction continues. That's how sexual issues, addiction or abuse or molestation, incest, that's how gambling problems continues, because no one's really addressing the elephant in the room for the sake of their own pride or for the sake of the look of the family, whatever it may be. And that's how those things manifest. And that's how they come from our family of origin, and we pass them down to our family of creation, because that issue was never quite addressed the way that it should have been.